She's April.
And she's Molly.
And we are
the Book Besties. I just want to fuck around and find out.
He first spends time in the Grippy Socks place.
He was going to get some angel sex.
Fuck his mom.
I called her gun control Karen in my notes.
Oh, I have to do the outro. You're waiting on me.
Hi.
I want to give off a trigger warning for this episode before we do anything else. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. Today's novel, We Are the Lights, is about gun violence, mass shootings, suicide, mental health breaks, and more. Please skip this episode if any of these things can be triggering for you. While these things are handled with grace in this novel, we will be covering them in depth. So be kind to yourself, besties.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I want to be excited that we're no longer in spooky season, and then you picked this motherfucking book.
I mean,
to start November.
In my defense, I didn't pick it for anything other than the cover. And I saw it was the guy that did Silver Linings.
Because I do that all the time.
And I picked it because the guy from Silver Linings Playbook does it. And I was just like, okay, he's like a seasoned author. So this can't be a terrible book.
Right.
This and can't be. I mean, and it wasn't. So
I don't know. I have feelings about it.
Well, we're going to talk about it.
Well, before we do that, I was getting ready for pod. Dinosaurs. I was getting ready for pod and putting on my headphones, right?
Mm-hmm.
That millennial urge to pull the strands out like you were wearing a headband. Like, I can't not do it.
Piper, so we went to Nikki Payne, right?
Yeah, how'd that go?
Great. Nikki's amazing. Fucking Nikki's amazing. You know that. She's amazing. She thanked me for coming.
Have her back on again.
She thanked me for coming, because my time is, so important because I'm such an important human being.
The author struggle. Like, that's her hustle. She's got to get people.
So she thanked me. But the reason I was bringing that up is because Piper did her own hair for the event.
Oh, yeah?
And she pulled 2 strands down and curled them and then a high pony and then wrapped a hair around it.
Is it back? Is that bad?
I don't know. She did that for her chorus concert too, but she put it in a bun. And I was like, can we talk about this? And she's like, no, there's nothing to talk about. I'm leaving it like that. And I was like, got it. Okay, Piper, this is where you stand now. Or just got it. But Nikki was great. East City Books is a woman-owned small business in DC. They are spectacular. I told them we would be their podcast. If they need a podcast, I even offered my services. I was like, y'all need somebody to come in and talk to freaking authors. I'm your gal. If you don't have somebody to host an event, give me a ring. Yeah. I live down the street.
I would love to do a bookstore.
I would love to do a bookstore. Bookstores. We will be your gang. We don't mind being your people. We don't.
Yeah, I would love to do that. We haven't done that before. We've done con now.
Yeah. But Ashley Herring Blake was like brilliant. She's just, I didn't know she wrote YA. She did YA in middle grade before she wrote romance. She wrote romance on a whim because she was bored during the pandemic. Delilah Green was a pandemic book because she was bored.
What?
It's like when fucking Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote Hamilton during his freaking writer's block. It's not fair. It's not fair.
I'm sorry.
It's not fair. There's just some people the talent just bleed out of.
Yeah.
And then there's me who is struggling to put a word on a page.
No. You have a map.
I do have a map. And I'm doing NaNoWriMo this month.
I know. I'm super, super excited to see you.
I've decided actually to just write the summary because this is that big book I'm plotting out, and I'm putting it over 20 years. I'm going to focus on writing the summary in NaNoWriMo and just making sure all my finite details are just before I do anything. And so even though it's not really NaNoWriMo, it's NaNoWriMo. Does that make sense?
I think you should, do your summary and your plot, but I would write a few scenes too.
Yeah. I want to see how far I can get. I want to make sure, but I'm going to take my time. I'm not going to rush this. This is a smart book. Chessie wants to read it. So if Chessie wants to read it, it's not a terrible idea.
Right. I wonder if she's doing NaNoWriMo again this year.
I don't know. I'll have to bug her. I'll have to ask her. So Halloween costumes were fucking amazing, dude.
Thank you. We were Monopoly pieces.
You were Monopoly pieces.
Sammy was a shoe, and
he was the cutest little kick ever.
Drew and cut out like the side view of a shoe. Mm-hmm. So like the back of the shoe was like under his pits, and like the toe of the shoe was like towards the ground, and then he had
laces in the front. It was so cute.
And there was an aglet on there. So I was like, you know what these shoes are missing? Aglets. And if you don't know what an aglet is, Molly will link below the Phineas and Ferb aglet song because everybody should know it. And so he was that, and James was the hat, but also like the Monopoly man. So
he was a silver little dude. It was adorable.
We got his jacket at DAV, which is a thrift store that supports disabled vets.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we tried so hard to find like a kid size jacket, and we couldn't find one. And I went to the women's section and bought him a small women's, and it fit him like it was tailored for him. I was like,
he's a big kid. Like he's tall.
Somebody at church today said, wasn't he like a whole head shorter a week ago? And I was like, that's what I think too. He's growing.
You know what Piper
and I was a thimble, and Tom was the race car, and he was in his electric wheelchair for it. So,
you know what Piper said after you guys left in April, right? She goes, "That's the last time that boy's ever going to be shorter than me."
It's true. It's true. He's up to my shoulder now.
I don't doubt that.
I'm 5'8".
I don't doubt that. I am done with Halloween. I mean, it's officially trick-or-treating hasn't happened yet, but the Biggses are done after last night. Like, I am donezo. We did trunk or treat for Piper's ROTC.
Yeah.
And I went all out, homie.
Yeah.
You saw the pictures. I went
It was
all
very
out.
cool.
I made it.
You're being a little wibbly, whimey, timey-wimey because it's November for our listeners.
Wibbly wobbly. Ooh, space-time continuum internet. How about we talk about this week's book?
Sure.
So this week's book is We Are the Light by Matthew Quick. Matthew Quick is the author of Silver Linings Playbooks and this is his 6th novel, I believe, his 9th novel, something like that.
But this is a library copy. Support local libraries.
Always. So how about a synopsis? Or a summary? Whichever. A brief description in word form.
Sometimes I type in summary instead of synopsis in our notes because I can't remember how to spell synopsis, and I was like, fuck it, summary.
Oh, no. Spell check's my best friend. Dyslexia. Gang, bitches.
Yeah, I know it's bad when not even Google knows what I spelled wrong.
They're like,
I give up, bitch. Try again.
Google's like, you want to try that again?
Pick a different word. You don't know what you're talking about.
All right.
Go ahead.
Majestic, Pennsylvania is an Majestic, Pennsylvania is an idyllic Americana small town and recently has had a tragedy like no other. A troubled boy went and killed many of his fellow townspeople a few nights before Christmas at the Majestic Theater. The town is now praising Lucas Goodgame for his actions in the theater, but he personally is struggling. So he decides to write his young analyst, spelled Jungian. It's pronounced young, like the word.
It's Jung.
But the audiobook narrator said young.
Yeah,
young.
Because it's German. Like, Y's are, J's are Y's.
Like,
instead of saying
Jägermeister.
Jaw.
Yeah, young. So his young analyst Carl, who he hasn't seen since before the tragedy. But after his session suddenly stop, this makes things very difficult for Lucas. This book is written in letter form to Carl as Lucas is trying to move forward in his life
Yeah.
after the shooting. This includes taking care of the brother of the shooter, his wife's best friend moving in, and much, much more. This book is complicated and deep, and I want to save the rest of the story for our conversation. So
Good
let's
idea.
just jump in, dig in, whatever you want to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, this is our first Matthew Quick novel.
Yep.
He is most famously known for Silver Linings Playbook, which was a full movie, which was eventually a full movie, and it was nominated for a bunch of awards. Jennifer Lawrence even won an Oscar for her part. Just a long way of me asking, have you read him before?
I have not. I did like the movie Silver Linings Playbook. I'll be honest, I don't think I realized it was a book, although that makes sense. All the best movies are made of books.
The most
But
complicated ones are.
um but I have never read him before. No.
I haven't either. Do you
Mm-mm.
think you'll read him again?
Probably not. I spent the majority of this book going, oh my gosh, what the fuck, Molly? What the
Right.
fuck? What did you pick? Why? What is going on? This book is so fucking weird.
It is weird, but I'm not mad at its weirdness. And
Well, I did tell you. So I finished this one a little bit, maybe like a day or two before you
yeah,
finished it. And I had told you like the whole way, I was like, oh, this book, this book, this book. And you would just like send me back laughing emojis or whatever. And then when the big plot twist happens, which I know we'll get into
we
later,
definitely will.
I
Yeah,
texted you back and was like, this book is actually starting to grow on me.
yeah.
I hated it until then. And the twist doesn't come until, I don't know,
Wait, and
2/3
like
of the book in.
the twist is perfect. I think it's perfectly placed in here, but
Yeah.
we'll jump into that.
Yeah.
But he's very seasoned author. He's has a voice. It's very like every novel is told in a broken man format, right? Silver Linings Playbook is about a guy that's just gone through a divorce. This is about a man who's dealing with the loss of his wife. Every book of his is like talking about masculinity and talking through tragedy and talking the way. And I find that interesting because we don't get a lot of those voices in fiction.
Well,
So,
that's a lot of the Jungian analysis. So, for those of you who don't know, Jung was a psychiatrist, doctor of psychiatry, and just like we have these other theorists about mental health, where you'll hear people throw those out there. Jung's theory was that it was a lot of breaking down toxic masculinity before that was even like a term. It was like what it meant to be a man, and being a man meant that you felt your feelings, which you should. That's being human.
absolutely.
I just thought this was an interesting take on it. I really did not care about Jungian analysis, and like that's the whole fucking book, and that's part of the reason why I didn't like it. I just didn't know enough about it, so I had to do a
Didn't
lot of
either.
Googling and a lot of
Yeah.
research on my own, which I always do for pod anyway, but like I felt like this time I was like, I don't care.
I don't know. He said phallic a lot in this book, more than I wanted to.
Once is more than I want him to.
Phallic representation so many times. And I don't even have a question about that, which is kind of funny.
You know what's really funny to me right now is the way that we're talking about this episode. Like our demeanor is totally different. Like it's like an NPR podcast
Yes.
episode.
Today's episode is We Are the Light with Molly and April of the Book Besties.
And I know it's like a heavy subject, and so I kind of get it, but like I don't
I'm
know.
sure we're going to get into us. Well,
I
don't
just
worry.
wanna
Don't worry, guys. We're still going to be us here. Don't get too crazy.
fuck around and find out.
This book is told in letter form.
Yes.
I'm sure
I
we've
did
seen
not
this
like
before. Really? I'm sure we've seen this before, but this felt different. Thoughts?
I did not like it. So there's only one book that's written in letter form that I actually really like, and that's The Perks of Being a Wallflower. And much like
I was going like Diary of Anne Frank.
Oh, but those are diary entries. That's not the same thing.
Right, but it is like a letter to herself.
Okay. I've never
No.
read all of the Diary of Anne Frank, so I can't. I've never read all of it. I've read excerpts, but never all of it. What are you? What's the face?
I am shocked.
Why would
You've
that
never
shock
read
you?
the whole thing?
No. Why would that shock you? What do I
You're
like to
just
read?
you read everything, but you're just
I
you.
do? Because last episode you were talking about how I don't read
I
everything.
just feel like you are more well read when it comes to classics compared to me. I really do.
Pretty sure every one of my English professors would disagree with you.
But your degree is just you're just deeper in your degree. You're deeper in the English language than I am. I'm surprised because I look at you as a much smarter person than me. And
I don't know that that's true.
oh no, fuck yeah, you are. Shut up. Just shut up, friend. Shut up.
Okay.
Fucking shut up. You have a master's. Let's just fucking your degree is literally research. So go fuck yourself.
Okay.
Stop talking
My
shit
God.
about me. See, we would get to us eventually. But no, I really do. I think
Well, okay, sorry. I'm going to
I just
distract
assume
you from that conversation there, but
right, we're totally off topic. But
I've
no.
never read all of it because I know what happens and I don't need to.
We know she dies. We know it's heartbreaking. We know it's devastating.
She didn't just die. She died a few days before the camp was liberated. Like,
yeah.
it's like fucking tragic,
bullshit.
obviously.
It's bullshit.
But I have seen the play production and anyway. Okay, so
not the point.
Back to this letter writing. I loved Perks Being a Wallflower. And that was a letter writing. And Perks Being a Wallflower has a big revelation, mental health revelation as well, as like just like this book. And I found that to be an interesting comparison. But I don't particularly like that kind of style. And
really?
I don't know. I don't think we read it for pod, but I read it for our book club. The I don't know, the Literary Potato Pie Society, whatever, Guernsey, whatever the fuck that book is. I hated that one too, but that was also historical fiction.
Oh, we read that for book club, not
book
pod.
Club. Yeah, please don't put that on pod.
I won't.
But I checked out the book from the library because I wanted to know what the format was, like how the letters were formatted, and they're just formatted like normal letters. Writing.
Yeah,
there's no like.
There's no special signature.
Yeah, there's nothing that makes it look different other than it starts with Dear Carl.
Dear Carl.
And, I mean, it's just not my favorite style of reading.
I mean, I get that. It's just, I don't know. I like it. I like when authors take a chance and it works. And I feel like this worked. You know what I mean? It didn't distract from the story. It didn't change.
I just don't agree.
It didn't change the way I consumed the story. I liked it.
I just don't agree.
That's okay.
I feel like you could have gotten the same story written as a novel in first person. And I know you have a question about the unreliable narrator later. I think it would have been more of that if it were written as a novel. And also, don't put on the front a novel when it's a collection of letters. It's not, I mean, I don't know. I just don't like that style.
I don't know how
in particular, I did not like the style in this case.
I don't know how he would have dealt with the time gaps. Does that make sense? Because there is a lot of time gaps in here.
But I think what he could have done, this book is it's less than 200 pages.
You want to do what Twilight did? There's a possibility.
No, it's 240 pages. But it's still pretty short. I mean,
you just stare at a window for freaking 4 months.
Shut the fuck up. Comparatively, the book that we read last week,
fucking Wilder Girls.
Just look at these two side by side.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry.
I get you. Your point up a little bit. There you go.
And now look at it compared to the book we're reading at the end of this month.
Fourth Wing. Oh my God. Everybody and their brother has been on me to read that book.
I mean, look at that, Molly.
Yeah.
That's That's half the book.
I know.
I feel like there was more that could have been filled
I
out,
don't
and it
know.
wouldn't have taken away from the story, and you could still have the gaps. You could also still do the letters. Like, he could still be writing to Carl and intermittently having the story told as, like, a novel.
I think, okay, we'll talk about it when we get to the unreliable narrator part, because we'll talk about it. Where are we? Okay. What question are we on? You're like, you're in charge, Biggs.
Get it together, Biggs.
I'm trying really fucking hard. The setting of this book is post a massive tragedy.
Yes.
And we are living life through a single person's point of view. And while that person seems unwell, what did you think of our main character, Lucas Goodgame? Could we put him in the unrelatable narrator category?
So I don't think so, because I don't think a mental health crisis necessarily makes you unreliable. When I think of an unreliable narrator, I think that it's somebody that's, like, falsely telling us things,
purposely lying to the reader, right?
To throw us off.
But
Lucas was not lying to us; he was lying to himself.
Mm-hmm. But we can get, I feel like we can get unreliable narrator if, okay, Katie talked about this
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Did, right? He could have that in that book. What is it? A Flicker in the Dark. In A Flicker of the Dark, that main character could have had did and still been the voice of reason and still been the voice of the book and been an unreliable narrator as still cognitive, right? And mentally ill, right? Because that would have been an unreliable narrator, because we would have been getting multiple personalities.
Right.
I don't think he was unreliable. I just think he was mentally ill.
And I think, yes, he was definitely mentally ill, and we do know that by the end. But I also think there's a theory that we could pull a thread apart for this book. We could interpret this book that he's not just experiencing something that a mentally ill person would experience. What he is experiencing is the savior complex, the helper complex. They talk a lot about caregivers getting burned out. His job before this book starts is that he's a counselor at a high school. So instead of taking the time to handle his own mental health, which he was doing before the trauma, he was seeing Carl every week for his therapy sessions. Instead of doing that, he's helping everybody else. I'm gonna save the person that murdered my wife. I'm gonna save his brother. I'm going to bring this community back together. I'm going to, hold everyone together with my bare hands, instead of focusing on the fact that I'm struggling.
And what a masculine trait, because my husband is that person. If something, let's take my spine, for example, when I had to have that spinal surgery. He didn't have his feelings about me deteriorating more until almost a year later. He went into fix-it mode.
And then
that's
exactly what it is, Molly. He was in fix-it mode.
He was in fix-it mode, right?
Lucas was fixing it.
And as Lucas
because he had, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but because he has dissociated enough where he is now envisioning that his wife is still alive in angel form, he doesn't need to worry about himself. He needs to worry about everybody else, because they don't know, but he knows his wife is fine.
And what's really upsetting and frustrating about this is, like, you can see him physically, Lucas, taking pieces of himself out, right? And he is Lucas is a likable character from the beginning. My heart feels for him. I'm warmed to him right away. My heart is breaking for him. It is very apparent that this man needs a hug. He needs people to care about him. The person he needs most is gone, right? And so he just fakes it. And it's just, this book was just, fucking devastating. The actor, did you have any more on that question? I'm sorry, before I moved on.
No, but I just thought of this, so I'm just going to say it now. I don't think the town rallied around. What was the boy's name?
Hold on 3 seconds.
Um,
3 seconds. I have it right here. The brother,
yeah.
Eli.
I don't think the town rallied around Eli. They rallied around Lucas because they knew he was struggling.
Right. And
And he was their hero. He was their savior.
right. And since Eli was the project, and
Mm-hmm.
since that was the only thing Lucas would focus on, they're like, well, we
Mm-hmm.
got to take care of him, and take care of him, we got to take care of this.
Lucas. Yeah, exactly.
And eventually they fell in love with the boy, but it not in the way they thought they would, you know?
Mm-hmm. I just thought of another thing I wanted to
That's
talk
okay.
about, so I'm just writing it down.
That's okay. The actor Luke Kirby did the audiobook. I truly enjoyed his performance. Did you read the physical copy or did you listen to the audiobook?
I did the audiobook too.
What did you think of Luke Kirby?
I thought he did a great job.
I think he embodied Luke as well.
Mm-hmm. He reminded me of, I know this isn't one of your favorite books, but he reminded me a lot of one of the main characters of Station 11.
Mm. He
He
kind of
actually,
reminded me of one of the audiobook narrators from Station 11.
I haven't read it as an audiobook, so I don't know about that. But
His,
there's a character who dies at the beginning. He's an actor,
mm-hmm.
and he's kind of all of the threads tied together in the
Mm-hmm.
story. Like he's the one that ties them all together.
Right, right.
I think his name is Arthur, and
The one that dies on stage and gives the
Mm-hmm,
kid the comic books and
mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm,
like I remember the story now.
yeah,
Like the comic book, he's like the father of the Messiah
right.
guy, and yeah.
That's the same voice that I hear
He's
for that
the
guy too.
he's the he's the pivotal point in that book, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's
He's
the
the
key.
common thread.
He's the common. There's the word.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Lucas is slowly going mad,
Mm-hmm.
or that is sure how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
As if it's at first it's just Jill and his best man friend, as he calls him, Isaiah, looking after him, but looking after him. But the deeper into the book we get, we see more and more people starting to care and watch over him. Bobby the cop, for example, what did you think of this? Was he a good teacher? Was he a hero? Or do you think the town truly just loved him?
So I think as we learn more about the story, like looking at it in retrospect,
Mm-hmm.
I realized that the town was looking after him because they knew he was very unwell.
Yeah.
And they were trying to keep him from
Safe.
hurting himself,
Yeah. Because
probably.
yeah.
But I think in a lot of ways, he was revered as a hero in this community. He is the person that he killed the shooter. Like
He
he
killed the
made him
shooter.
stop. And I know we're going to talk about that a little bit more later, but I think that this town is a small town that experienced a tragedy, and so they're all going to rally around each other anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with him, there's a sense that they need to protect him.
Yeah.
That
Because
he's really unraveling and he needs to be protected. But I also think it's like Mr. Holland's opus. He poured himself out into all these kids who are now adults, and like they want to pour back into him.
like Bobby the cop.
Right, exactly.
Bobby
The cop, we get glimpses of the fact that he counseled him as a high schooler.
And look, and we find out there's a Christmas where he gets all these gifts for the angel wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the angel wife tells him to give him to Jill.
Mm-hmm.
And then him and Jill get into this whole hubbub about it because there is the tickets for the Majestic, the season passes. And Jill thinks it's a joke, or you know what I mean? She doesn't think it's funny or sweet. She's like, this is kind of gross. And he's like, what are you talking about? Darcy loved this. Why are you upset? And they get into it and he takes off. And he goes to wander because that's what this man does when he's freaking heartbroken. He wanders.
And he wanders a lot more than we actually know in this book because we keep finding out this isn't the first time that Bobby has taken him home.
No. So Bobby finally picks him up because it's fucking Christmas Eve. Bobby picks him up and puts him in the cruiser and warms him up and starts to take him home. And then Lucas realizes Bobby's in his street clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Jill called him from home.
Yep.
But because Lucas looked after Bobby for so long,
Mm-hmm.
Bobby's like, I gotta do it, man. I gotta do it for Lucas. I gotta do it for Mr. Goodson because
Yep.
Mr. Goodson took care of me when I was weak. And
By the way, fantastic wordplay to have his name be Goodson.
yes. Yes.
We
Yes.
harp a lot about character names, and like last week when we were talking about Buy It, what the fuck kind of name is that?
But this
But
is the exact
Goodson
opposite. This
was
is
a
the
good
exact
call.
opposite
Mm-hmm.
of Wilder Girls. Well, Wilder Girls felt unprepared,
Mm-hmm.
like wild and sporadic. Every part of this book felt thought out. Every part of this book felt like he was laying traps and puzzle pieces. It was
Last week I said something about how Wilder Girls reminded me of Katzenjammer because of the bodies changing and all of
yeah,
that. This book also reminds me of Katzenjammer. Well, actually, I would say any of Chezzy's books because they all have really good twists to them.
yeah.
But you realize at the end of a Chezzy book that all along these pieces have been adding up.
Mhm.
But with Katzenjammer, the beginning of that book is so like bizarre that I'm
Yeah.
like, what is this? And
How
that's how
did
I
this
felt about this
happen?
book.
Yeah.
And then you get to the end and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
that's
So,
what this was.
yeah.
Yeah. Unlike last week when it was just a fucking parasite that the CDC apparently couldn't find.
Because global warming's bad, kids.
Gosh.
We know. We fucking know. While in the theater, Lucas claims he watched the 16 fatally shot victims gain their angel wings and fly off to heaven. Except for his wife Darcy, who he claims gained her wings and stayed.
Uh-huh.
It is the ceiling of the Majestic that helps him decompartmentalize what happens and what he did, and then eventually leads to his breakdown.
Right.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about him in the Majestic as a physical building to start. So he
So it's
thinks
this old theater.
it's
Like
this
a
old,
classic theater.
right, that this gay couple who were from the city came in and they rebuilt it and they just made it this beautiful like movie house, right, where they show old movies, new movies. It's great. It's featured in it's a very special part of the Majestic.
Mm-hmm.
This shooting definitely fucked that up for this town.
Yeah.
And when the shooting was going on and Lucas did what he did, which we're going to talk about later, and he looks up, he thinks he's seeing the souls of the people rising out of the bodies. But what he's doing is his mind is disassociating and he's just seeing the paintings.
Yeah.
And we get a full circle moment for that when he goes to present this movie, which we're going to talk about, and he looks up to the ceiling and he loses his fucking mind and he just panics and sees the angels again.
Yeah.
What did you think of this full circle moment and the angels and all of it? Talk to me.
Well, this was the moment that I was like, okay. This book is growing on me. I kind of see what's going on now. I still didn't see the other twist, which I know we're going to talk about in a little bit. But the whole time I thought it was quite strange that he, had his dead wife in the angel, and at one point it was their anniversary and he was going to get some angel sex and whatever. But that whole thing was weird. But then when you're like, oh, he rationalized this as he was trying to get his wife to stop bleeding out.
Yeah.
She was already dead. She died it's likely that she died as the first victim.
Yeah. And I mean, it was
she
straight
was
to
the
her
first
head.
bullet fired from behind, and that was the end of it. But I think he had a moment where he was looking up, the why God moment, and sees the angels, and he lost it. He lost it completely. And so this was him rationalizing what happened. This was
100%.
him saying, it's okay. Everybody's fine. They're all angels. It's fine.
It's fine. They're not dead. They went to heaven. They're fine.
Yeah.
We're the ones. He's like, this is for like the first few chapters of him talking about the funerals and how it's just like a show. And he's like, this is just a show. Like, I don't know why everybody's upset. They're fine. They're angels. Everybody's freaking out over nothing. Like, they're going to be okay. Like, it was really him. He was really like decompartmentalizing all that.
The way he was processing it was just not normal.
No. No.
But grief is weird.
Grief is so weird.
It's so weird. And I feel like there's no right way to grieve. You know,
No.
they talk about the 5 stages of grief, but a lot of people will tell you you'll go through all those stages, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's in order or that it's
They never go
linear.
in.
And
And
I just
they'll
feel
come up
like,
and those stages come out of nowhere too.
right.
I get still angry. My Aunt Pam died when I was in my 20s. I'm
Mhm.
still mad.
Mhm.
I'm still angry. I still hit anger sometimes. It's like,
Yeah.
fuck, she deserves to see this shit, you know?
Yeah. I
Like,
mean, I still am grieving my grandmother who
yeah,
died in 2010.
yeah.
You know, Tom's mom just died a few months ago, and I still feel that heavy. Sam came home
Mhm.
from school a week ago and was like, I still really miss Nana. And I was just like,
Oh, Sammy
I was
cakes.
like, buddy, that's going to happen for a while. You might always miss her. You might have times when you're
I
bigger that
mean,
you're saying, I wish my Nana were here, because
right,
that's
because there's
normal.
right? Well, there's moments in your lives where you go to turn to that person,
Hmm.
right? Because
Hmm.
there's something funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're like, "Oh my god, the only person in the world that's gonna comprehend this is you're not there
Yeah.
because you
And
left."
in terms of Lucas, his
Yeah.
wife was really his entire world.
I
He
mean, she
had
was
the
the first
kids that
person.
he had the
Yeah.
kids he counseled and his wife. He didn't have any other family because they didn't have children. Um
Nope.
and his mom
He's a
is
piece of
pretty
trash.
awful. And actually that's one of the things I wanted to talk a little bit more about, but we can talk
We're
about
gonna
it in a
get to it
minute,
at the
but
end.
I just think like it makes sense that he had to put a wall up, that he
Yeah,
had to put a barrier between himself and his grief.
because
Was he doing it in a healthy manner? No. But in his defense,
I mean,
even though he was incredibly unwell, the letter writing started because he was trying to get help.
right. He knew he was broken.
Right?
He knew he needed help. He just didn't know how to fucking fix it.
Right.
And man, that takes a big person to go, shit, I'm broken.
Mhm.
I need to fucking fix myself.
Right. But and then he I don't want to give the spoiler away yet. So
Okay, we'll get to that. In the book, we get Majestic the town and the theater as characters. They are symbols
mhm.
for so much that happened in this book.
Mhm.
What did you think of the use of settings as characters? The Majestic is owned by Mark and Tony, who restored it. The theater is playing "It's a Wonderful Life" during the massacre
Of course they
symbolism.
are. I don't know that I would agree with you that the town is a character,
Okay,
because the
okay,
only
I can
piece of the
give you
town that we get is the Majestic and
the
Jill's
people. When I say the town,
half-breed.
I mean like the people, right? The people of the town.
Okay, but I still feel like the people are just the people who were affected by the
By
Majestic
the
shooting.
yeah, I'll give
Um,
you that. Okay,
but I do feel like the Majestic itself is a character, and in
absolutely.
some ways a literal character, because the angels are his manifestation of what happened. Um,
Of Darcy. Oh my God, Darcy. Oh, I
yeah,
skipped that question. Oops.
well, that's fine. We can
We'll
go
get
back
back
to it
to
in a
it.
second, but I don't know. I don't necessarily think it was that way. The Majestic was a character itself, but I don't know that I feel like the town, even the people as a
No,
collective.
the theater
Um,
was, but the theater was because it was the location of the massacre, but it was also the location of the reclaiming. It
mm,
it, it was the plot point. It was a driving plot point.
mhm, mhm,
So my Darcy question. Darcy
mhm.
the Angel is a big plot point. What did you think of her and why she was there? We kind of discussed this already, I
Yeah, I
guess.
feel like we did. It's Lucas trying to justify it,
Yeah,
trying
we
to make
definitely talked about
himself feel
this.
better.
Yeah,
But I also think, do you have a question about Jill?
I think so. If not, we'll get to it. I'll write her down just in case.
No, I'll just say it here. I think part of the reason why Lucas was struggling so much is because of his attachment to Darcy being different than his attachment to
Hmm.
anyone else. And I don't just mean that as a wife. His mother caused him to have a significant amount of trauma
Fuck his
in
mom.
reference to his own body. He felt
Right.
shame about his body when he was a teenager and he would get an erection, which he had
She
no control over.
she would
She would
tease
shame
him.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah. that
Call him
called him
gross.
dirty
Yeah.
and told him that was filthy and shameful.
Fuck that bitch.
And so the first time that he and Jill, the only girlfriend he ever had, the first time that they go on a date, he gets an erection because they go to the beach.
Yeah.
He gets an erection seeing her in her bathing suit, and he's super embarrassed. And she pulls him into the water and's like, you should be enjoying your body and you should be enjoying mine. And I think they
That
have
was
sex.
Darcy.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
You said Jill.
No. I haven't got to the Jill part yet.
Oh, okay.
And I'm pretty sure they have sex in like the water or something.
Yeah, or something like that, yeah.
Which is like the very first time they've ever gone on a date. But
Yeah.
So Darcy might have been a little fast, but it's all right.
That's okay. So is Aunt Molly, but we love her anyways.
But Lucas was not just in love with, he was infatuated with his wife.
Yeah.
Then you add in Jill. And I don't think Jill made the best decisions in this book. I understand why she moved in with him. Like, I feel like she was watching him. But when they go away for his anniversary and she comes into his hotel room and they have sex, and then she's like,
that was
it's
Jill
okay.
being.
It's okay. We were just drunk, whatever. I
That
don't
was
think
Jill
that
taking care of it. Jill definitely should have done that.
She should not have done that. Don't think it was about them being drunk. I think that was about her trying to deal with her own grief.
She was missing her best friend.
And what she was missing was really not, that's not how he needed to process grief. No. Some people sleep around as a way to process grief. That is not how he needed to process grief.
No.
And I do think it's really weird that they end up getting engaged at the end of the book. To me, that's like, I don't know. It feels too fast for him to have never had a relationship outside of Darcy. And now
I honestly don't think, that man at the end of this book, he's never going to be whole. Mm-mm. I don't think that man's ever going to be whole. And I think Jill is his closest thing to having happiness and joy.
But that's not a good enough reason.
For him, it has to be.
It's not a good enough reason. He's not whole. I
understand his rationale, and I don't know how to defend it. Does that make sense?
I feel like she took advantage of him.
That's okay. You can have those feelings.
Good, because I do.
Where was I? Oh, okay. Question 9. We're not doing too bad. I mean, this is a deep book, so we got to really talk about it. I want to talk about the two boys in this novel that changed Lucas's life. Eli and his brother. The reason I'm saying his brother is because they don't mention Eli's brother's name really in this book because in real life we don't make the tragedy about the shooter, we make the tragedy about the victims because the people that suffer are more important than the person that did this. Does that make sense?
We should do that.
We should be, but it doesn't always happen. But after all the funerals, an orange tent shoots up in Lucas's backyard. Mm-hmm. It is the boy. It is the brother of the murderer. Mm-hmm. Lucas decides to help the boy because his angel wife told him so. Mm-hmm. As he helps him, they build a relationship, and he learns about the boys, like Eli and his brother's terrible childhood. Again, does not mean it's okay to go shoot up a place. Mm-hmm. You can have shitty childhood all you want. Don't fucking go kill a bunch of people. This relationship is one of convenience. Both needed to heal. But till Lucas, mental health starts to fade. They work together on Eli's movie. I have a separate question about that, and help him move forward in life. So let's talk about the complex relationship between Lucas and Eli and just all of this.
So I actually think what's really going on here is Lucas and Eli and Eli's brother, who is the murderer. Mm-hmm. I think Lucas and Eli's brother's storylines are parallel.
Yeah.
So you've got terrible childhood that Lucas had, where his mother belittled him.
And there's so much mirroring here.
And made him feel terrible.
The abuse.
And, yeah, awful. And then Lucas's brother and Lucas, where their mother belittled them and made them feel terrible, told them he would locked
them in closets, make them dress up as women when they were to embarrass them. Like
all of that is parallel. So Lucas did with his awful childhood, what he did with it was use it to empower him to counsel other kids. Yeah. What Eli's brother did with his childhood is murder people. And what Eli is doing with his terrible childhood is processing both a tragedy and the trauma of his childhood through art. So
Yeah.
there's 3 separate ways to deal with this childhood. And I think that is actually the thing about this book that I found the most intriguing, that
Hmm.
you do have these 3 separate ways of dealing
Hmm.
with childhood trauma.
It was really brilliant. It's
I
very.
don't know that I would say brilliant, because I didn't think the book was as brilliant as you did, but I
I
do
like it.
think that was an interesting way to tie the characters together.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about the movie now.
Okay.
Eli's
It
senior
sounded terrible.
the movie. Oh, I thought it would have been hilarious. I think Eli's senior
It
project.
reminded me of Dawson's Creek.
100%.
Mhm.
100%. Eli's Senior Project is a monster movie. It is a symbol of all that Majestic has lost and how Lucas
Mhm.
is certain that it is, and Lucas is certain it is a way for them to reclaim their lives. What did you
Mhm.
think of this whole plot? Because, like, this is the main plot point, right?
I don't think it's because Lucas thought it was a way to reclaim their lives. I think it was his way of saving that boy. He
Mm.
was going to save Eli. He was going to make Eli not be like his brother. And the way he was going to do it was heal through art.
He was going to fix Eli
Mhm.
any way possible.
Right.
He couldn't fail another kid.
Right.
And I'm sure that's how he felt.
That's absolutely how he felt, because we learned that he counseled Eli's brother too.
Right.
He counseled like all the kids in town.
Right.
So, yeah, I think there was some guilt associated with that, besides the fact that he killed the shooter.
Yeah,
Besides that,
but let's talk about that. I don't know where that is in my questions, but he did kill the shooter, right?
very
Um,
violently.
he smashed the boy's head in with his own hands.
And I mean, Molly, he didn't just smash his head in.
He
Okay. To
pummeled.
me, he kept hitting his head on the ground to the point where the cops had cleared and secured the scene and
Yeah,
had to pull him off of the boy.
yeah,
The boy was way dead, and
he
he
was way
kept
dead.
beating his head. And I
He just
texted you this when you finish it. I was like, I know that gun violence results in, like, I don't know, what is it? 18 people died in this book?
16, 18, something like
Something
that
like that. All those people died in this book, but to me, the violent death was that
of the shooters.
of the
Yeah,
shooter, of the way
absolutely.
Lee killed him was so incredibly violent.
And that is the sign of Lucas's rage, right?
Mhm.
Lucas had just as much rage inside him as that boy,
Yep.
but it didn't burble out till that boy took the only thing that man loved.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Ugh.
Exactly what happened.
Okay,
I think
so
it's interesting. I'm sorry. I know you don't have a question about this, but I want to talk about this real quick.
go ahead.
I think it's interesting that they have a survivors group, and
Mhm.
you see how different survivors deal with the tragedy.
Yeah.
And this happens in all the shootings that have happened in history or tragedies in general. There's always that one person who gets very vocal about
Political.
and political. And what ended up happening is, I don't know how much she believed in what she was saying versus how much she enjoyed it made her popular.
Oh, yeah.
It
The
made
woman
her
that went
famous. She ends up being the governor. I called her
yeah.
gun control Karen in my notes. But
Like,
she was very much like, art isn't going to fix this. Nothing is going to fix this except stricter gun laws. And
she's a
and then she ends
fixer.
up financing the movie because she realizes, oh, this is what the town
Good.
actually wants.
This is great press. This is
Mhm.
great press. I'm
I'm
gonna
going to
do it.
finance the movie
Yeah.
because I need people to know that I was a part of it, even though
Right.
the whole time she was not a part of it.
Yeah.
She wanted Lucas to abandon the movie to be her like voice on the campaign trail.
Right. It's awful. She was trying to buy him out. That
She
was
was trying to use
fucking
a tragedy for
wild.
her own gain.
You know what she reminded me of? Have you watched Ginny and Georgia?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so in Ginny and Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
it's on Netflix. There is this woman in town who is just awful to Ginny, to the mom, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And she's judging her and she's just such a bitch. And she's constantly on their dick. And come to find out, she has this tragic thing where her husband's terminally ill and he's dying.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you like love hate her, and that's the only thing I could picture was this character. I'll put it in the linky links so people can know what I'm talking about.
I know she wasn't this old. I know, can't remember her name, but gun control Karen wasn't this old.
Mhm.
But I kept picturing Emily Gilmore.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when we go into her
Yeah.
house and she has the big picture
Yeah.
monument of her husband. I was like,
Oh,
oh,
that
no.
is 100% something Emily would do.
Yeah, but I
Are
know
you
she
not going to
wasn't.
greet, because very well, where very well Emily would be like, you're not going to greet Richard? You're not going to
Right.
say hello to your father? He's right there in front of you.
Have you
Like,
seen the Netflix A Year in the
yeah,
Life? Yeah, and
yeah,
she does do
yeah,
that.
yeah, I know. Um, I think we already
Anyway.
talked about this, but I'll read the question. At the premiere of the movie, Lucas finally has a breakdown, re-entering the building and being back where his wife dies, and he, spoilers, murdered the shooter with his bare hands.
Oh, man.
The people
Violently.
in his life rally around him. He first spends time in the Grippy Socks place, but once he returns home, they start man-sitting him. What did you
Mm-hmm.
think of the community rallying behind him?
I mean, I feel like that it makes sense to me. They rallied behind him to help Eli. Now they're rallying behind him because they realize that they ignored this downward spiral and
Mm-hmm.
they help him because he's still their hero.
Right.
He's still their savior.
He's still Lucas Goodson.
Mm-hmm.
He's still fucking Lucas. He's still hail the conquering hero. Right? Like,
I mean, he was so connected to everybody in this family or everybody in this community. Like he counseled all the kids.
right, because he's been there forever.
Mm-hmm.
He's he is as
He
much a part of
counseled the
Majestic.
daughter of his best man friends.
Yeah.
Like he counseled her
Who
and didn't
was
ever
who was
tell.
so worried about him.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
worried about him.
yeah.
So we've put this off long enough. We've got to talk about Carl now. It's time.
I didn't see it coming, Molly.
I didn't either. But I want to say something before we get into the deep about Carl. I am really pissed at this book for one thing and one thing only. You stole my fucking joke.
When I heard it, I was like, "Oh, that's Molly's joke."
I am so mad. And if you are an OG fan, you've heard this story before. But when I was in community college, when I was getting my basics knocked out, I was stuck in a group project in one of my psych classes with a fresh out of high school kid. And he introduced himself to me as Carl with a C.
Mhm.
And after that, I knew I had to put that into a book until this man goes, Carl with a K. I spelled it right just for you. I was so mad. I was so mad. And I know I know it has nothing. So, okay, let's talk about the real reason we need to talk about Carl because it's really important. We learn Carl loses his wife in the shooting.
Yeah, we knew that.
But what
He
we
officiated
didn't
his own wife's funeral.
but what we did learn after is that Carl committed suicide.
Mhm.
And poor Lucas, who had been walking, finds him dangling through his front window, and Lucas breaks into his home and tries to break him down and save him, but
This
he
is
can't.
this is when we find out. This is when we find out that Carl is gone.
Lucas dissociates for so long he couldn't handle losing both. He
Mhm.
truly had a mental breakdown. How do you
Mhm.
think the author handled such a touchy subject? Death, mental
Mhm.
health, and suicide, which I'm referring to, obviously.
I think it was an interesting choice. Not just that Carl was dead the whole time. Like, it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't just that being the twist. The interesting choice being the man who was the Jungian therapist
Yeah.
analysis, the man who was in charge of, in care of
The mental
Lucas's
health.
mental health, killed himself.
Because he couldn't even handle it.
He couldn't handle it.
He couldn't even handle it. A man who knows and works in mental health and is secure in his mental health
Mhm.
couldn't even handle it.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
how fucked up this tragedy was.
Yep.
I feel
And
like
he was there too. Like, Carl was at the Majestic when the tragedy happened. He just wasn't one of the people shot, but he is a survivor of it. And I mean, honestly, Molly, I see a lot of plot twists a mile away, and we read so much for pod and for personal enjoyment that we don't often get surprised anymore. And I
this
went, oh,
shocked me.
fuck. Oh,
I go,
fuck.
I text you in all caps, Carl is dead?
That is accurate. Carl is dead.
Oh my God. It
I
was
was
just,
really shocked.
my heart dropped into my stomach
Mm-hmm.
for Lucas. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh,
That's why he had never written back. I just thought he
oh
was dealing
my
with his own grief.
God. And like, he keeps writing him.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a family living in the house, and he talks
Mm-hmm.
about, it's just, oh, Carl.
And we thought the whole time the reason Bobby the cop tells him he's not allowed to hang out around the house anymore,
Because he's upsetting Carl.
he's upsetting Carl, but it's because Carl's dead and there's somebody else that lives there now. Like, you can't be showing up here, bruh. It's not okay.
No, stranger danger. You know, you look
Yeah,
like a psychopath.
right.
Um,
Oh my gosh. I was really shocked.
okay. In the audiobook, it's in the 20s, the chapter, but it's in chapter 18 in the
Yeah,
physical
it's
book.
chapter
For this
18.
page 109, we hit 3 years 3 years and 8 months later is where the end of the book starts, okay?
Mm-hmm.
This last little bit, the author wraps up all of the novel, giving us somewhat of a happy ending.
Mm-hmm.
Lucas is back. He has a new young therapist. He is still working on himself. His relationship with Jill has become more defined, and things are kind of smoothing out. Life is not perfect, but they're okay. What did you think of this ending?
Um, I still think it's weird that he does end up with Jill. I feel like that's just a cop out. I don't think he needed to end up with anybody, although it is 3 years later, so maybe he
Mm-hmm.
has fallen in love with her in that point. What I found to be really interesting was the ending where they were going to see Eli's final project for his
Mm.
senior year of college for film school. Um, that he made a film about Lucas.
Yeah.
And Lucas was convinced that he was going to look cray cray in this. Okay,
Oh,
so this was
yeah.
me falling apart. And instead, it was a
Oh, it's just
beautiful
me having mental
tribute.
breakdown. It's cool.
Right. Except instead, it was a beautiful tribute to like this man who really saved him from his own circumstances.
Mhm.
And
Who put his
you have
own
to,
mental health to the side for him.
right. And you have to also keep in perspective, he killed Eli's brother. Like,
And
how do
we
you
didn't,
get past that? Even though he murdered all those people, like, that's still your brother.
which we didn't talk about this. And as those two are bonding, and
Mhm.
Eli and him are sitting on the floor, laying on the floor at one point in the book, and Eli looks to him and he goes, "No matter how much I ask, Mr. Goodson, please never tell me what happened in there."
Yeah.
It's like
And then it's
he literally, you can hear the boy saying without saying it, "I know you killed my brother.
right.
Just don't tell me you killed my brother."
Well, everyone in the town knew he
Right.
killed him. He just didn't want to know how. But
No.
what ended up happening is when he has his mental breakdown in the Majestic at the movie premiere, um, he tells us in the 3 years later part that he's certain that Eli knows how he killed his brother because he does end up like hitting the podium
Yeah.
as if he were killing
Right.
the brother
Oh, the
again.
boy again, yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm sure he did realize it. But I mean, the image of Lucas doing that, it's so counter to the person
It
that
is.
we've known this whole book. Not the fact that he saved all those people. He definitely is, time and time again in this book, a savior. The
Right.
fact that he did it so incredibly rage-filled and violent, it was shocking. It was the
Right.
counter of everything we knew of Lucas.
And who Lucas is.
Mhm.
It
So for me, the brilliance of this book, the part of this book that I enjoyed, didn't happen until we were all the way here. It
mm,
wasn't until we were towards the end where I was like, oh, okay, now all the pieces fit together.
mhm. I don't know. This is a solid 4 for me.
Mm.
This is a solid 4 for me.
I gave it a 3. And
Oh, really?
here's the truth, Molly. I really am a big fan of Life is Too Short to Read Books You Don't Enjoy.
Mhm.
Like DNF. DNF all day, every day. But I would have DNF'd this one.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
You would have missed what a beautiful plot twist.
I would have missed that. And that's why it gets a 3. The plot twist is the 3 for me.
Mm.
The whole time I'm going, oh my gosh, this is another 1 for me. I hate this book. I hate it. Oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah. I mean, look, I get it. This man does lead hard onto symbols, and he is definitely trying to be the next great American novelist, right?
Mm-hmm.
He is gunning hard for Hemingway. He is trying his damnedest to be like American hardcore literature. I fucking get that. This is fucking moving though. You know, this is a book that definitely will sit with me for a very long time because it tells a tragedy in a way I've not heard it before. That's just me personally.
The whole
Did you have
he's been
any?
dead the whole time thing is a fantastic plot twist, but it was very much The Sixth Sense.
Yeah. I see dead people. Did you have any final thoughts, questions, comments, concerns?
No, I've shared everything I want to share. I didn't hate this book in the end. It really did grow on me, but I can't rate it higher than 3 because it took so long for me
to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I think we needed his spiral, but I definitely could have used another POV. Maybe
I would have preferred this written from multiple POVs or to have not been written in letter form.
Well,
and then or maybe only his point of view was written in letter form, and we get
and everybody else is just watching him slowly spiral, where we get just random chapters from townspeople. Like we get a chapter from Jill, we get a chapter from Eli, we get a chapter from the guy that takes him to soccer, the dentist. You know what I mean? And
right,
and that would have been interesting. That would have been interesting for sure.
That would have been better for me.
You want to talk about next week?
Yeah, unfortunately, I left the book downstairs because I was reading it earlier. But
how dare you read books for pod?
But we have a fantastic guest next week, Molly.
Oh what are you talking about? Who? What are you talking about, Willis?
Armstrong.
What? No, not Addison Armstrong.
We met Addison at the Annapolis Book Festival in April of this year, and we'll be back next year. And we read her book, The War Librarian, which is historical fiction. That's what she writes. I have said time and time again that I do not like historical fiction.
But you love The War Librarian.
Loved that book.
You loved that book.
Yes. So that's her second book. Her first book is called The Light of Luna Park. It looks like this. Tom put it right here.
Thank you.
And it is a story about, I didn't know this happened, but on Coney Island, there were incubator babies, and it was basically a sideshow attraction.
Yeah.
And Katie actually read this one. Nurse Katie read this one when we were prepping for con. She actually read both of Addison's books.
Yeah. Of course, because Katie can read everything. Katie
so
freaking reads everything.
But we asked Addison if she would come back.
And she's like, duh.
So she's coming back next week, and we're going to talk about The Light of Luna Park. And somehow I'm in charge of that episode, and it's historical fiction, so I'm going to do my best, folks.
You got this.
Yeah.
I have faith in you.
I like her writing.
Your research, she's research, we got this.
And already, I'm pretty early in the book still, and already I'm just impressed by the amount of research she does. She's just like phenomenal.
I don't doubt that. I tried starting it this week. I just wasn't in the right headspace. We've had a lot going on here.
That's fair.
It's been a week.
And that's what we've got going on next week.
I know. So, I'm excited.
Check our socials. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok. We're pretty funny. So
I mean, I think so. And I put a really cute outfit up the other day. It was spectacular. Stripes and plaid all in one outfit.
It was wonderful.
It was spectacular. Go check it out. Till next time, fuckers.
Stop it.
We love you guys. Truly. Thank you for being here.
All right. See you guys next week. Bye.
Thank you for joining us on Book Besties. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The views discussed here are those of April and Molly and not those of anyone else. Today's book was We Are the Light by Matthew Quick. Your Book Besties are Molly Biggs and April Watkins. Editing by Thomas Watkins, and music is Sleep Sweetly by Brigida. Don't forget to follow the Book Besties on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. If you would like to contact the Book Besties, please email us at bookbestiespod@gmail.com or visit our website, bookbestiespodcast.com. Until next time, besties, get lost in your favorite book.